Okay, Sandy, you know you're suppressing something. You need to figure out what it is. I have had a huge transformation in my life based on astrology and understanding personal healing through the mind-body syndrome. But when I forgave myself, that's when the big shift happened in my health, I think.
Thoughts are racing, spinning fast, ideas flow, but never.
In today's episode, we talk about the body's wake up calls, mind body syndrome, astrology as a predictable energy map, sound frequencies bypass the brain, and we are holographic beings.
Rambling on, no straight lines. Welcome to my busy.
Hello and welcome to Ramblings of a Busy Mind, and this is take two because I screwed up again. My guest today is Sandy McLellan from Sandy's Uncaged, and she talks about astrology and alternative healing, and that in a capacity as a mentor, you just said. So do you want to share a little bit about why mentor and what's your background?
So I have had a huge transformation in my life based on astrology and understanding personal healing through the mind-body syndrome. And so I've been sharing that with my clients. In the beginning, when I first started doing astrology, it was just to read their charts. But as I moved along, I was helping them work through their personal struggles, helping them to find their purpose and direction and to find calm in their life. And so they're the ones that put the label on me as a mentor as they would keep coming back for more guidance and more advice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really what I've always wanted to do, but I didn't think I had the capacity to do it.
We usually fall into the spaces we're needed. That's what I
Exactly.
find. So your backstory is you had to go through things yourself, and I don't know much about it, but if you want to share it with everybody else, what led you to do what you're doing right now?
Sure. Um, 10 years ago, I was working as a property manager for a well-known leasing company. And I loved my job in the aspect that I was taking care of my tenants, but working for the landlords was exhausting because they didn't have the same um, dedication to the tenants as I did. And so I wanted a change. And at the same time, I was going through a major breakup. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and um, it was 2016 in the fall. I separated from that partner. And it was also during what we call a Uranus half return. I was rediscovering myself. And when we have a Uranus half return, it's in our early 40s. And we are trying to figure out what it is we want to do for the next 40 years of our life. And big things happen during that time. A lot of people get separated. A lot of people's children leave home, or they want something that is more fulfilling as far as a career goes. So I was going through all of that. And I was staying up late at night and I was trying to do things that I did before my children that brought me joy. And this was before I even understood what astrology could tell us. And not too long after that, I met my current partner, and things just started coming my way in my inbox, like the law of attraction, how you can be creating your own physical ailments, and that led to the mind-body syndrome. And so I made the choice after 7 years to leave that job, and I went into retail. It wasn't making any more money, but it was just putting me in a new situation. But there was a job before that. It was home care. And home care really opened my eyes to how much I was taking on other people's emotions
Mhm.
and and really let me know that I was being an empath. And it's funny how it all lined up. It's funny, but it's not funny. It was meant to happen that way, right?
It's the way it goes.
Yeah.
There's never a choice.
Right. And I love that job too. I was taking care of the clients, but I didn't feel I had more passion for their well-being, I think, than the people I was working under. But that's the way it was. Like, but it was just really hard for me. And I think that was also creating some of my physical pain as well. So I left that job. I went into the retail because it wasn't so emotionally draining. And then when I was working in retail and slow times, I was reading more about the mind-body syndrome and the law of attraction. And I started to realize that I was creating my fibromyalgia on a larger scale. And so I started rethinking my thought process and thinking positively towards my health and learning about the mind-body syndrome and realizing that I was suppressing emotions from my past. And that was what was causing my pain. And so after starting to do that, after a couple months, I was off my medication. And I
Mm.
remember different periods where I was on the medication. I didn't want to be confined to that for the rest of my life. I didn't want to be diagnosed as chronically ill, which is what you are when you were classed as having fibromyalgia. And I had tried a couple times and it didn't work. And then this time, when I started understanding why I was having these weird symptoms, and I was working through things that were coming up to the surface, like my ex-husband and the ex-husband before that. And forgiveness was the one that was really on the surface. And it wasn't about forgiving them. It was easier to forgive him than it was to forgive myself.
Mm.
But when I forgave myself, that's when the big shift happened in my health, I think. And so after at some point it had been like 3 weeks since I had last taken my medication. I went to the cupboard because it was that time. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I looked at my pills and I was like, oh my God, I haven't taken these in 3 weeks and I feel better than I ever have. And I'm not even really tired, which was usually a sign when to take the pills. And so anyways, I started doing that and I took that on as a mission. So every time anything negative come up, anything thinking negatively about myself or my past, I would journal about it and I would release more pain. And Louise Hay has been a big influence on me. Though when her book came across my path, the first time I rejected it, ugh, like really bad. But then she came back 3 months later after I had gotten past the need for the pills. And so I took her book and I worked through it and it helped bring up things that I didn't realize were there. And then towards the end of that year, my husband kept asking me about astrology because he knew I was interested. And I was only into things like Chinese astrology. And so he bought me this book on astrology. And then I printed a chart off of the internet, like a generic report of astrology, and it wasn't enough for me. So I started dissecting my chart and learning more about it. And through that, I was learning other things that I was holding on to that was creating like flare-ups. And so somewheres by the end of 2018, the end of 2019, I wanted to be able to share everything that I knew about the mind-body syndrome and astrology to anybody that would listen to me. And let me tell you, there wasn't that many people. But my dad was one of them, which I thought he would be the hardest person to talk to. But for the last 30 years, he's been reading about the mind-body syndrome. And he might even try to tell me at different periods in my life that I could have been creating some of this stuff myself or trying to explain Eckhart Tolle or whatever, and I wasn't listening.
Mm.
But then at this point in my life, I was ready.
Mm.
And so it just slowly evolved from there. But the universe has been directing me on this path. I kind of was on the fence about it. The generic report wrote off the internet said I could or I couldn't be an influence on other people. Couldn't really determine if it was going to be a vast amount of people or a small amount of people, but I did have the potential. And it's under the sign of Sagittarius, which has to do with alternative thinking, right? Philosophies, astrology, spirituality. That's all the things that I am. And but I just didn't realize it back around 19 or 2019, 2020. And so when I started diving into astrology, I was actually roofing. I was a commercial roofer, torching. And we were working away. We were working in Liverpool and Spring Hill. And so when we were home in the hotel room, everybody else was drinking and partying, and I was reading astrology. And then I started reading charts for the people on the team. And then I started coaching my foreman, who is my partner, on how to treat the crew differently based on their Mercury, which really helped him because he's a very quick learner and he expects people to catch things very quickly. Where some of them, like myself, and there was this other guy who also had his Mercury in Cancer, take longer to learn. And so that really helped him have more patience. And then at some point, I cut my hand wide open and I couldn't work for 6 weeks. And I feel like it was the universe aligning everything. I actually had to put my hand in a tourniquet with astrology material, had stars and moons on it. And so that gave me 6 weeks to be able to study astrology, right? And I had books all over the house that we were Airbnb-ing in Spring Hill. And then I went back to work for a while. And then about another 6 or 7 months later, I set an intention that I didn't want to be on the roof anymore and that I wanted to be doing astrology full time. Within 2 weeks, I got vertigo and I had to go on sick leave. So what did I do? I studied astrology. I found a mentor who helped me believe in myself and really figure out what my purpose was. And from there, I started getting clients and then it slowly started to evolve. But then a friend came to me and said, do you mind doing like 15 hours, 10 hours a week advertising for me on Facebook? I was like, yeah, sure, why not? But that evolved from that to 35 hours. And I was really trying to find the time in my day to dedicate to astrology and to build this business. But then it started going towards her. And then the more it went to her, the more I started to feel sick again. The symptoms of dizziness, fatigue, wanting to lay down on my desk because I hated what I was doing. And it was again with the tenants and the landlords. I loved my tenants. I was standing up for my tenants and the landlords didn't want to hear what I was saying. And it was pushing me. The universe was pushing me to get out of there. It was pushing me to tell her I didn't want to work for her anymore. But it was scary. How was I gonna there was no guaranteed money, right?
Yeah.
So the universe or God struck again, and I ended up with meningitis. I ended up going to the emergency in ICU, almost dying, and having to be laid down again for another year. I couldn't drive, I couldn't walk my dog, and I had to tell my friend I couldn't work for her anymore. She actually came into the hospital and she sees this. I love her to death, but she came into the hospital and she asked me where I was going to be laid up if I could do just 5 or 10 hours a week. And I had to look at her and I had to say, I can't. And I feel like that's what the universe needed in order to keep me going in the direction I was going. Otherwise, I might have died. I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't following my purpose to my whole heart, right?
Yeah.
And then when I went home, I had a conversation with a neighbor who told me about this program for disabilities, which I spoke for yesterday. It was called Go 3D, and it's to help people who have disabilities to start their own business. And she managed to convince me to apply because I was like, who in the right mind is going to fund somebody who is teaching astrology? Half the people I bring this up to are just like, whatever, they don't believe it. But they approved me. And
Mm-hmm.
ever since then, things have just been lining up and putting me in this path. And now I own my business. I'm not doing anything on the side. And if I do, it's something that I need to be passionate about. And but this is my mission. This is my purpose, and I'm filling it.
It's I I lately I often say it's so interesting, but I find things so interesting. It always, So here it is again. It's so cool that you were able to listen. You got the slap on the head saying, you're going the wrong way, right? There's
Yeah.
something better for you. And a lot of the things that I do with others is I try to teach them to listen to their to listen to their inner voice, to listen to their body. And our bodies tell us so much more than our mind can actually comprehend. Um, the the fun in that is when you start listening, you have all those opportunities that open up, and they're so easy. Instead of going against the stream, trying to work with something that you're not really resonating with and struggling for the rest of your life, right?
Hmm.
And people don't get that. I love that. I never had, gotta say that right. My grandmother believed in astrology and she had our charts done, our birth charts. And she never showed my brother his because it was so bad. That's one.
She
That was when I was a kid, like 15, 16, something like that. And then I was not really influenced with any of that. I knew my horoscope. I knew the first two signs. So I knew I was a Pisces and in Germany we call it ascendant, so the Sagittarius. Um, but I didn't know then the third one is Virgo, and that I just found out lately with going to the markets and then becoming closer to you guys with doing the astrology. But what I love about the astrology is when you look into it, and it doesn't matter which one you look at, because I know there's different kinds of astrology, but if you start looking into that, that's information that's presented to you. And a lot of it makes sense in a way that it provides you with another opportunity, possibility of more knowledge, more pointers that explain you. Not that I say this is you 100%. No, it's an aspect of you.
right.
But if you know about that aspect, and if there's a tendency towards something that is found in your astrology, it will provide you with a way to either cope with it or to use it,
Or
which
accept it.
or accept it. Yeah. And the thing is, it's you're in a better place because you have more information. That's
Right.
it in the short. And yeah, no, I like if when I started my journey and went into the burnout, I was such a brain person that I would not be able to talk about the singing bowls because I thought I was such a charlatan. I felt such a quack. But the thing is, when you accept what they do and you learn the things they do and to learn the things that happen with them, you learn that it's not the same as astrology. You have your knowledge, you have your stories, you have the lived experience for yourself and your clients to not just write it off as, oh yeah, that's voodoo or woo-woo or whatever you want to call it, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I see the point too. When you are working in something or when you're going into the overwhelm and stress, um, the more information you have at hand in a way that it can make it easier, the better it becomes. And if I understand that right, the body, you said that mind body
Syndrome.
syndrome. We'll dive into that in a second. I'll just have to make an announcement.
Okay.
So the audience, if you like so far what we're talking about, if you find some value in what we're doing, why not like and share and spread the word and subscribe? We try to find ideas and stories for everybody. And if there's just one person who can shift their perspective with that, that's totally fine for me because that's what I want, just to give you opportunities. So back to the body mind syndrome. Mind body. What which way is right? Doesn't matter. Does
Mind
it?
body
Mind
syndrome.
body syndrome. Where does that term come from?
So I learned about it from Nick and Jack. They have their own business teaching people how to live a better life. But one of the big things she talks about is the mind body syndrome. And I can't remember their handle. They change it. They've been changing it every few months. But it's a coaching business. And she was talking about how when she was younger, around her age of 20 or something, she was going through a lot of health problems. And she learned about the mind body syndrome through Dr. John Sarno.
Mm-hmm.
And Louise Hayes talks about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's her big thing is a mind body syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's when we suppress emotions,
Mm-hmm.
our childhood, from other relationships, from things that are happening around us now, not talking about them, thinking that there's so many people out there, and I can see it in their astrology. They just think if they don't talk about it, it's going to go away. But then they're complaining about their back, they're complaining about their shoulders, they're complaining about going to the same practitioners over and over again because it gives them a little bit of relief for a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
time, but they're not dealing with the root cause. And when we can look at what we're suppressing, and a lot of the ailments, like the pharmaceutical companies are just making millions off of this when we can fix this ourselves. but going to a doctor can create some kind of security. And I'm not saying to go off your medication. You still need to see a doctor. You still, like, if you need to take that medication until you can figure it out, till you can relieve the symptoms on your own, then absolutely do that. But even like practitioners around us, alternative healers can help us work through this stuff, either by bringing awareness to our emotions, or a lot of them are doing this in some way or another. Like acupuncture, for example,
Yeah.
different parts of our body that are carrying pain, an acupuncturist will know, well, why that's happening. You're holding anger or you're controlling something. And um, so it's, and then there's a book that I've been reading lately by Nicole Sashes, who has been studied underneath Dr. John Sarno and worked with him. I have the book right here, Mind Your Body. And she gives a journaling process to be able to work through some of these things. She wants you to write down everything that is bothering you and then work with each one for a half an hour every day. And as you do that, you start to see the relief.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
so that's okay. But one of the biggest things that's come up for me recently, after I thought I worked through all these things from my childhood, things to do with my parents and how they didn't let me do certain things, to relationships and holding resentment and anger from some of those situations. When I had the meningitis and I went in the hospital, I lost all control on my left-hand side of my body and I couldn't talk. And I didn't even have peripheral vision. And so I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. The doctor said I was going to be there for more than a month, but I wasn't going to let that stop me. And I was able to walk and talk again within a week. And, but still couldn't drive. I still couldn't walk my dog. So I felt like I had lost control, but I didn't realize this. It was all happening subconsciously. And the pain that came from those suppressed emotions was coming up in my foot. And I moved on. I was driving again. I was walking the dog again, but it was still persisting. And my husband and I moved into this house here back a year and a half ago, and the pain was flaring up even more. And it was because I have a Virgo moon. You have a Virgo moon. And things around the house, trying to decorate the house, putting things in their place. I wanted everything done my way, and the pain was flaring up. It got so bad to the point that I couldn't even come down my stairs. And so I was like, okay, Sandy, you know you're suppressing something. You need to figure out what it is. So I sat down and I thought about what was happening in the moment that the pain got so bad. So I journaled. I spent a whole day. It was the day after a full moon when we're supposed to be releasing. And I'm pretty sure the moon was even a Virgo moon when that happened, a full Virgo moon. So I sat down all day and I journaled and I journaled and I journaled, and it went all the way back to when I was in the hospital as a child and I felt like I had no control. And can remember from when I was a child and in the ICU, I couldn't talk, and the nurses were telling me what to do. I couldn't say how I was feeling or anything like that. And so I journaled all of that out. I journaled all of the points in my relationships where I didn't feel like I had control, when I didn't feel like I had control when I was a teenager. And the pain is gone now. And people call that plantar fasciitis. Is that what it's called?
Plantar fasciitis, yeah.
Right. Both my parents have it. And now a doctor would tell me that that was like hereditary, but it's not. It's gone now. I worked through it. I went to see an acupuncture. They agreed with me. It had to do with control. I was holding stuff in my kidneys or my liver. And so it just pushed me even more to work through it, journal about it. And I spoke to another astrologer around here, Kimberly Jovier. She even reminded me that I was doing it, and she helped. She was a piece of the puzzle, and then other little things. And now I have no pain no more. I have no, like, even inkling of a pain because I worked through it. So I want to do that for as many people that are open to it as possible. And by sharing our experiences, the more people that share their experiences, the more people can be on the same path and feeling their best life.
It's my approach is similar, but it's not, I don't call it mind body syndrome. For me, what I do is I work with usually when you have stuck emotions in the physical body, That's the pain. That's the tension, the body holding you safe, whatever happened. And I totally agree that modern medicine has its place. Anything that's acute, anything that's right now happening, surgeries, whatever, absolutely. But anything that's chronic is mostly emotion based. And if you don't take the emotion out of the physical, out of the body, out of the cell, it will not go away because you're holding your body holds onto that place. And working with PTSD and with the burnout, which is mental health, I've learned that the best thing I can do with them is helping them reconnect with their body and letting go of whatever is there, right? And it's so interesting when we attend markets together. And I don't know if I'll see you this Saturday in Halifax. But the point is that at the market, I used to present myself as working with sound. Sound is just a matter. I work with you, with your self-trust, to trust your body again, to trust the connection with your body again, and that your mind is not always your friend. Your mind is keeping you in that box that it considers safe.
Yes.
But that means there's no forward movement. You're stuck in that place of misery often. And you cannot move forward until you release whatever's stuck in the body and then bring it all back together in body, mind, and emotions or soul, however you want to call it. If all of them are somewhat balanced, then you're okay to go. But if one of them is out of whack, why would it function? Right? We're holistic. We're not holistic. We're holographic. We're not one dimension or two dimensions. And I find a lot of the practitioners these days, be that medicine, be that complementary, and I don't like the word alternative because we're complementary. Only if we're complementary, we're doing the best for everybody. If a lot of them are still stuck on that, I can fix you, but it's their box. It's not the bigger picture. So they work with what they have. So energy healing would work with the energy in the body, but not see the bigger picture of, oh, we'll bring more of the emotions in and we'll see how they tie in. Or I take a training that might give me some manual aspects in my energy healing. So I combine the sound, the energy healing, and what I learned of touch for health, which is then the balance through meridians or whatever tools we use, into a bigger picture, because I found neither of them by themselves were sufficient. And only when I can combine all of them, I can do the best for my healing partner. Right. But I love the approach of, like, I like to go and get my astrology done. I like to get my card read because I found always there is a pointer for me. And my question is never, oh, when will I find my great love or what's happening with money or whatever. I just say, tell me what I need to know.
Yeah.
Because that way opens the playing field for any information that is right now important for me that person can provide to come in. While if I go with a fixed question, there might be things that are more important to get to what I want to hear. Instead of putting up that block, I open it up and they can tell me what I need to know. Do I always want to hear what they know? And but it's interesting. And at the same time, it's very liberating because, there is more at hand that you can have. And I know last year was one of the years where, as I'm restructuring my business into the healing work from the business work, that I was doubting and that I was like, am I really doing the right stuff or whatever? And I didn't ask for the business. I just asked the question, what do I need to know? And I got answers to all my questions every time. So yes, you're on the right path, but you might be careful with this and what here. And having that knowledge and having that awareness of this could happen, or this is an area where you have to be careful, made things easier. Right?
Yeah, just having the awareness is very helpful.
And being open, like I find often when we're stuck in the overwhelm and we feel like there's too much information anyway. But if you open you up to a different perspective, if you open yourself up to another side of information to come in, it can get you out of that devil's wheel of constant thinking the same thing. Because again, there's new information coming in. So it cannot go this way. It has to go either loopy or totally spiral out instead of keep going in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
So you are teaching astrology.
Yes.
How does it look like? So do you do like people in person or online, or what
I
you
do
do?
workshops, I do courses, I work one-on-one, whatever feels right to the client, really. I'm doing a workshop this weekend at Into the Mystic on Saturday, so I won't be at that market that you're going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the workshops are a lot of fun. I did one at Arcanic Studio about a month ago with the most amount of people I've ever had in a workshop, and it was amazing. It went really well. And I even do parties in my house. I had 5 ladies here on the weekend that came by, and we had a little astrology party for about 3 hours. And it's just opening people's eyes to what astrology has to have. But I also do a 6-week course where I help people break down their chart and understand all the different elements of the chart so that they can look at their own chart, discover new things about themselves. Like, I really want to ask the question, who doesn't want to learn more about themselves, right? Like, you you learn so much through astrology and human design, and there's gene keys, which I don't know anything about, and other things just keep showing up the more I share about astrology. There's other ways to learn more about yourself and learn about what your purpose is, and I highly recommend them because they really help you. It helps concrete that what you're dreaming of is is meant for you. So, yeah, so the course breaks down the chart, we put it all together, then you can leave that course being able to read your chart with confidence and be able to read your children's charts or your partner's charts or your sister's charts. So you can have more compassion for them and show up better in those relationships and in your relationship to yourself.
That's a really great point because when you realize that how much of the chart really reflects on how you are, and then you can relate onto others that you see their chart and that and I know we tend to over simplify things with like, oh yeah, he's a Capricorn, so he's like that. But there's a little bit of truth in there. Sorry about that. There's a little bit of truth in there that certain aspects show up, and it depends on like I'm not a typical Pisces. I'm not. Because I like to argument too much. and I like to be the devil's advocate and ask questions, which would be more probably the Sagittarius. But
Yes,
the
your
thing
Virgo
is,
moon.
yeah, and the thing is too, we're not just one aspect. We're not just body, we're not just mind, we're not just soul. Same with your horoscope. You're not just one, you're not just, but we tend to simplify it in life, or society tends to simplify it. Oh, he is like that, so he is like that. But if you have a chart, if you can see the chart and if you can see more of the influences, again, you see more of the information that makes it easier. Yes, I know. That makes
Just
it
so people get an
easier.
idea, it's more than one thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And then there's again the interesting part, having your birth chart. So I say your affinities, yeah, with what you're born with. But then you have your year chart where this is what's happening through the year. Here's your influences. Here's what can happen. Here's what is possible. So again, you have a tool at hand that can help you make decisions, that can help you be aware of things that might happen. They might not happen, but the
Right,
tendency that it could happen is there. And just being aware of that will help you prevent whatever comes, or cope easier with whatever comes,
right,
or actually amplify what comes because it's beneficial for you. So all of those things are there. But if you don't know about it, how would you do?
right. So, based on my astrology and the point I made earlier about me being able to influence people either in a small amount or a large amount, that all depends on how I roll with that information, right? If I haven't been so determined to achieve that, I would have quit 3 years ago,
Yeah.
right? but I'm still at it. And these, like when you look at the astrology, it's not just your sun sign, it's all the planets, and it's all the planets and all this and all the signs affect you, and how they show up in the, like how they line up has a role. And I do lunar returns every month for myself, and I encourage everybody to do it. But it gives you a prediction of the next month, where, like, how your money situation is going to be, if you can spend more freely, or if you're going to have struggles with your money. Is the focus going to be on your career? Is the focus going to be on your family? Is the focus going to be on yourself? Do you need time alone? Are you going to be more extroverted or introverted? And I love doing that at the beginning of the month, and then go back at the end of the month and looking at it and just like, oh my God, like this, it's all there. And it just helps so much just to be able to do things with a little bit more confidence, I guess. And then you can do that for the year. Like you said, it's called a solar return. When the sun comes
Yeah,
back to the
yeah.
same degree, it gives you a prediction of what your focus is going to be for the next year.
You know, the interesting part, and I never put that in relation, but being an energy worker, therapeutic touch, um, we're working with the energy. What other is the energy of the stars in relation to our body? It's all coming down as energetic information. It's just that you can predict by the way the stars move, you can predict what's going to come in, which energy is going to come in, which I
Mhm.
cannot in therapeutic touch.
Right.
But that awareness just came up for me that it's basically you have, as the charts are very reliable. I don't know how much is there any how do you say diversion that it's not in the predicted parameters. There's not a lot in astrology. Like basically it's always been fairly straight on the path of the stars, and the way they come back and align has been always been mathematically calculated. Can be calculated, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you have a very predictable path of energies coming in.
Yeah, it's not me getting downloads from
No,
my
no,
higher self.
no, it's just you can tell somebody these energies will show up in your life at that time of year, month, whatever,
Right.
and they can influence you. To what point? Again, that's your affinity, and that's also how open are you to listen?
Right.
How aware are you? Right?
Right. Now, my intuition, I do use my intuition, and when I do my reading, it's because there's so much in the chart. So I rely on my intuition to narrow it down to what that client needs at that time, or what I need at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But like even on a daily basis, like understanding where the moon is can help validate why you feel the way you do today, or why you weren't working, like doing all the things that you wanted to do. It's because the energy from the planets and the moon and the sun is not aligning with what you have planned in your head, and that's okay. And having that understanding and that awareness gives yourself grace.
And we're again back to resonance and dissonance.
Yeah.
And it all comes back down to that. It's energies that are influencing or canceling out. Right? But
Yeah.
it's yeah, and that just clicked for me. It's so funny because sometimes I'm like, I should know that. I should be aware. But again, I intuitively follow a lot of things, and a lot of things make sense for me intuitively. I cannot explain why I do that. I just go ahead with it because I'm so used to follow my intuition these days. And I was always, even when I was in full-blown burnout and was such a brain person, I was able to pick the things that would bring me back to normal, that would bring, not to normal, who's normal, would bring me back into balance, would bring me into a better state.
Hmm.
But often I couldn't explain why. And I didn't question, I just went with it.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So cool. So again, if you like what we're talking about, if you as the audience find value in what we're saying, why not like, share, and subscribe and pass it on to people who can use that, because it's so important for others to get a little bit more input. And that's what we try to do. Bring them out of their narrow field into a wider field to see there's possibilities for everybody.
I do want to share one more thing though, because you've actually, there's like you and I met once in person at that last show, which was the Mystic Moon Fair in Coal Harbor. And we exchanged services. I did a little reading for you, and I didn't know what to expect from you, but you offered to do your bowl sound healing thing on me for about 10 minutes. And something very profound happened then. I was in that massage chair and you were running the bowls up and down my back like it was just something you do every day. But I had a moment where you were talking to another lady at that market, and it brought me right back to when I was a child on the gurney and when I had the meningitis, where the nurses were taking me through to the OR and talking about me as if I wasn't there and I had no control over the situation. Like I had my face in the chair, but all of a sudden I seen the bright lights like you see when you're on a gurney rolling down the halls, right? You see it in the movies all the time. And I
Mhm.
couldn't see you two, but you were talking and it was just like a flashback, like a memory. And that was part of all that issues that I was having with my foot and the control. And I believe that those bowls are what brought that to the surface and was able for me to let it go. So, like, even you have had a part in my healing journey. For
The
as small as it was
yeah,
very impactful.
the thing with the singing bowls is they bring forward um things that you don't wanna sometimes you're not even aware of, and they won't let you hold on to that. So they just dissolve whatever's there. And if you do a full session laying down in the Klang massage, I've had that often happening, and I can tell by um if somebody is all stuck up, they usually are drawn to a lower tone for the heart bowl. And as soon as they open up, and that's usually the third or fourth session, open up to change, they pick a higher pitched one because that's going to create change and that's going to create a little bit more shake up and whatever happens. But that's not me doing it. That's the singing bowls themselves. They bring forward whatever you need. And that's what I love them so much, because there is no inhibitors with those. Everybody can relate to them, can feel them if they're open to it. If not, then they're usually stuck in a different place. But most people come back after a while. And I've seen PTSD sufferers taking the singing bowls without me knowing it. They took it, veterans. They took it and they were all fidgeting and whatever before we started the course. And they take the singing bowl on their hand and they become calm. There's no twitch. There's nothing. They just sit there and they're totally relaxed just by having a singing bowl in their hand and tapping it. And that's why I love working with the sound so much and the singing bowls. I cannot relate to crystal bowls. They don't work for me. They were too stressful for my brain at that time. So I never developed a real affinity for them. But the metal ones are like my first one I bought, and I had it 6 months in my bed. In the morning, I would wake up with the singing bowl in my arm. That's how bad I was. But they give you a choice. They don't force you. They give you a choice, and they're very gentle, and they're just opening the playing field for you to experience something else. And that be no monkey mind. That be I can feel my body. Oh, my muscles can relax. And that's why I work at the fairs with the singing bowls and the tuning forks on the back, to give people, for once, the experience. This is what it feels like when I'm relaxed. Because most of us are never relaxed. Never, ever. Right? So thank you for sharing that, because I often don't get feedback. I wish there would be more.
Yeah, and you say it's because of the singing bowls, but it is because of you, because you're the instrument. You're the one that brought the awareness to the client, right? Like if it wasn't for you, they wouldn't have had that experience.
Well, I'm involved in so far as I open the playing field. I make the offer, they can come, but the shift usually happens through the sound. Not
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you so much. And we'll share all your information on how people can reach you on in the bottom of the video, in the description. Total brain fart. And if anybody wants to connect with you, I hope they do. So Sandy is also like me in Nova Scotia, and she's a lovely person. I love that conversation because it was so cool. It opened an eye opener. And again, for me, it's interesting to go into a conversation where even if I know the person a little bit, there's always something coming up that I don't know. And just getting that connection that everything's energy again. And astrology can point you in the way where which energies are coming in, which is huge. So yes, thank you for that. Thank you for the knowledge.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for this experience.
See ya.
Thoughts are racing, spinning fast. Ideas flow, but never last. Waves of wonder, thoughts untamed. Nothing ever stays the same. Rambling on, no straight lines. Welcome to my busy mind. Ideas.